New York City, 10 p.m. Lisa Johnson, a freshman at Columbia University, drove her black BMW X5 through a quiet neighborhood on her way home. She had just finished her shift at the university library. The cool night air helped her relax after a long day of studying. But just as she was about to turn into her residential complex, a flashing red light appeared behind her. This is the NYPD. Black BMW, pull over immediately. Lisa frowned but remained calm. She checked her rearview mirror and saw a police car closing in. I didn't break any traffic laws. What do they want? She slowed down, turned on her signal, and carefully pulled over. Once her car came to a complete stop, Lisa rolled down the window and placed both hands on the steering wheel, a habit she had been trained in at the CIA to avoid any trouble when dealing with law enforcement. Two officers stepped out of the vehicle. One was Officer Daniels, a middle-aged white man with an annoyed expression. The other was Officer Miller, a younger cop with a skeptical look in his eyes. Daniels tapped on Lisa's window. License and registration. Lisa nodded, calmly took out her wallet, and handed over her documents. Daniels flipped through the papers, then raised an eyebrow as he scanned Lisa from head to toe. Are you sure this is your car? Lisa blinked. That question felt off. My name is on the registration. But Daniels simply smirked. He turned to Miller and muttered, I bet she can't afford this car. Lisa heard every word, but she didn't react. She knew that the calmer she remained, the more mistakes they would make. Daniel sighed and closed the registration booklet. We received a report about a stolen BMW. And guess what? The license plate matches this one. Lisa froze for a split second but quickly regained her composure. That's impossible. This is my car. I have all the legal documents. But Daniel's on. Lie shrugged. If you've got nothing to hide, you won't mind if we take a look, right? Lisa knew she had no real choice. If she refused, they would take it as proof of guilt. If she cooperated, they could still fabricate anything they wanted. Before she could respond, Miller pulled out a pair of handcuffs. You're under arrest for suspected vehicle theft. Lisa was stunned but remained silent. She knew they had just made the biggest mistake of their careers. They had no idea they were arresting a CIA agent. Lisa was yanked out of her car. Her wrists locked tightly behind her back by a pair of cold handcuffs. No warning, no clear evidence, she was being treated like a criminal in the middle of a crowded street. Several bystanders pulled out their phones to record the scene. Officer Daniels dragged Lisa toward the police car, while Miller stood by her BMW, scrutinizing it carefully. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, Daniels declared. Lisa said nothing. She had been trained for situations like this. At the police station, Lisa was taken into a small interrogation room. She was still handcuffed, but she showed no sign of concern. Daniel sat down across from her, while Miller leaned against the wall. You think you're smart, huh? You're going to prison for grand theft auto. Lisa gave a small smile. I'm curious to see how far you'll take this. Daniel scowled. You have no idea who you're dealing with, kid. Lisa tilted her head, her gaze sharp. Funny, I was just about to say the same thing. Daniels opened a file. Lisa Carter, 18 years old, no prior record. But that BMW isn't registered under your name. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Miller tossed a photo onto the table. This car was reported stolen last week. And it looks exactly like yours. Lisa let out a quiet chuckle. Have you even checked my registration? Daniel stiffened. They had been too eager to make the arrest. Miller plan. Teddy's hands on the table. We have a witness who saw you near the scene of the theft. Lisa met his gaze. And who is this witness? Miller didn't answer. After nearly 2 hours of getting nowhere, Daniel stood up. You can stay silent all you want. You have no idea who you're up against, kid. Lisa tilted her head again, her eyes unwavering. Funny, I was just about to say the same thing. She simply smiled. She knew the truth would come to light in court. The interrogation room was cold. The flickering fluorescent light overhead casting eerie shadows. Lisa sat still in her chair, her hands still cuffed. But her gaze remained steady. Officer Daniels pulled out a chair and sat across from her, his face smug with confidence. So, kid. Tell me, how does an 18-year-old college student afford a BMW X5? Lisa tilted her head slightly, keeping her voice calm. I already told you. It's my car. I have legal paperwork. Daniel scoffed, shaking. Gee, his head. Must have been some drug dealer who bought it for you, huh? Lisa narrowed her eyes, feeling a spark of anger rise within her. But she knew she couldn't lose her composure. If she did, they'd have an excuse to pin this on her. Officer Miller, still leaning against the wall, chimed in. Come on, just tell the truth. Who did you steal it from? Lisa shrugged, remaining silent. She knew that the quieter she stayed, the more frustrated they would become. Daniel slammed his hand. D against the table. You're only making things worse for yourself. We have a witness who saw you driving away from a suspicious area. Lisa lifted her head, her eyes gleaming with defiance. Oh? Then show me the surveillance footage. Miller and Daniels exchanged glances. They had no footage. It was all a setup. Lisa smirked slightly for the first time since her arrest. I know exactly what you're trying to do. And I promise you, when we get to court, it'll be you who pays the price. But the cops didn't care. They had already decided to make her a criminal. Now, Lisa had only one option left: turn the tables in court. 3 days after her arrest, Lisa was brought to the Manhattan District Court. The atmosphere outside was chaotic, with reporters and curious onlookers crowding the steps. News of her arrest had spread everywhere. Everyone wanted to know the truth behind the story. Before entering the courtroom, she was allowed to meet with her lawyer, Michael Reynolds, a seasoned black attorney who had handled countless complex cases. He looked at Lisa with a mix of concern and curiosity. Michael placed a thick file on the table, sighed, and said, Lisa, I've reviewed the case. This is a joke. There's no solid evidence, yet the prosecution is still pushing forward with the charges. Lisa nodded, her expression unwavering. I know. But let's not rush. Let them embarrass themselves first. Michael raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? I went through the jury list. Some of them may not be on your side. Lisa gave a faint smile, her fingers brushing something inside her jacket pocket. I have an ace up my sleeve. Let me handle my part. Michael studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right. But I hope you know what you're doing. Lisa stood up, took a deep breath, adjusted her coat, and stepped into the long hallway leading to the courtroom. She could feel every gaze on her, some curious, some hostile. But she didn't care. She knew the truth would come to light soon enough. The courtroom doors swung open. Lisa walked in like someone who already came. Victory was hers. The courtroom was packed. A low murmur spread through the room as the jury members took their seats one by one. The prosecutor adjusted his coat, his eyes gleaming with confidence. At the highest seat, Judge Foster observed the entire courtroom coldly before striking his gavel against the bench. Court is now in session. His authoritative voice echoed through the room. Defendant Lisa Johnson, you are charged with grand theft auto. Prosecutor, you may proceed with your opening statement. The prosecutor stood up and stepped forward. He scanned the jury, cleared his throat, and began his speech. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today we are presented with a case that could not be more clear-cut. The police received a report of a stolen BMW, and when they stopped the vehicle in question, the defendant failed to provide a reasonable explanation. Lisa clenched her fists. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she kept her face calm. They were fabricating a story right in front of the entire courtroom. In front of so many people, yet no one seemed to question it. On the prosecution side, Officer Daniels was called to the witness stand. He walked up, placed his hand on the Bible, and took the oath. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Lisa locked eyes with him, the corner of her lips curling slightly. This man had no idea he was walking straight into his own downfall. The entire courtroom held its breath, waiting for the extension words to be spoken. No one knew that in just a few moments, the truth would unravel and every lie spun against her would come crashing down. The moment everyone had been waiting for was Finn. The tension in the courtroom reached its peak as Lisa stood up. All eyes turned toward the young woman. Until now, she had only been seen as a weak, 18-year-old college student. Lisa slowly walked toward the witness stand, each step stretching the suffocating silence. Upon reaching her destination, she calmly reached into her coat pocket. Her gaze sharp and unwavering, she pulled out an object and placed it on the table before the judge. The CIA badge gleamed under the courtroom lights. The entire room fell silent. Judge Foster's mouth dropped open, the prosecutor froze. Officer Daniels turned pale, and Miller broke into a cold sweat. The entire case flipped on its head in an instant. Lisa stared directly at the judge, her voice steady yet commanding. I am not just an 18-year-old student. I am the youngest CIA agent ever recruited. Whispers erupted throughout the courtroom. Cameras zoomed in on Lisa, capturing the earth-shattering revelation. An 18-year-old CIA agent. No one could believe it. Suddenly, the doors to the courtroom swung open. A team of FBI agents entered, led by a senior agent holding up a file. We have arrest warrants for Officers Daniels and Miller on charges of evidence tampering and abuse of power. Daniels struggled but was immediately handcuffed. Lisa locked eyes with him, her gaze razor sharp. I warned you. Justice had been served. Lisa took a deep breath. This was just the beginning. The entire courtroom fell silent. No one could utter a single word. The image of the CIA badge gleaming under the lights made everything feel like it was moving in slow motion. Judge Foster froze, his hands trembling as he stared at the badge. You must be joking. Lisa kept her voice calm, but her gaze was sharp as a blade. No, I'm not joking. I've let you embarrass yourselves for long enough. The jury gasped, some whispering to each other in shock. The prosecutor turned pale, able to believe what was happening. Officer Miller, who had just blatantly lied about Lisa, began sweating profusely. He turned to Daniels, his eyes filled with fear. Daniels stood frozen like a statue, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. Suddenly, the courtroom doors swung open. A team of FBI agents entered, led by Special Agent Jonathan Pierce, a commanding figure. Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. We have an arrest warrant for Officers Daniels and D. Miller for falsifying evidence, abuse of power, and discrimination. The entire courtroom erupted. Some people started clapping. while others pulled out their phones to record this historic moment. Daniels immediately jumped up, shouting in panic, "I didn't do anything wrong. This is a misunderstanding." Lisa simply crossed her arms, her gaze ice cold. "You thought I was just an 18-year-old black girl, didn't you? You never considered that I could be a federal agent. And now you're going to pay the price." Two FBI agents stepped forward and cuffed Daniels and Miller on the spot. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." This time, it was Daniels and Miller who were led out of the courtroom in disgrace. Lisa didn't need to argue. The truth had spoken for itself. Just minutes after Daniels and Miller were arrested, news of the case spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with posts, videos, and public reactions. The story was no longer just a courtroom drama, it had become a phenomenon. A symbol of justice and truth. Journalists present at the trial wasted no time in reporting the breaking news. Sensational headlines flooded every major news outlet. 18-year-old black girl falsely accused, turns out she's a CIA agent. Corrupt cops arrested in court. Within hours, the video of Lisa placing her CIA badge on the judge's desk had gone viral, amassing millions of views on Twitter, X, TikTok, and Instagram. Comments poured in across platforms. "Unbelievable. A young woman just turned corrupt cops into a joke in court." Daniels and Miller got exactly what they deserved. Absolutely humiliating. Lisa Johnson, a name we'll never forget. It wasn't just the public, mainstream media jumped on the story. CNN, BBC, and Forbes all ran deep analyses on the justice system, systemic discrimination in law enforcement. They praised Lisa not only for her bravery, but for exposing a dark truth that many had long ignored. A nationwide debate erupted across television and social media. Human rights activists, lawyers, former law enforcement officers weighed in on the case. Some politicians called for sweeping reforms in the police force. But amid the media frenzy, Lisa remained calm and composed. She didn't bask in the sudden fame or attention. To her, this wasn't just her personal victory, it was a win for everyone who had ever been treated unjustly. She knew that the fight against abuse of power was far from over. Her journey was only just beginning. A few days after the scandal involving officers Daniels and Miller, Lisa received a special invitation from the White House. The President of the United States wanted to personally meet her, to express admiration for her courage and intelligence. A national press conference was held in a grand hall, where Lisa stood on stage alongside the President and the CIA Director. The entire nation was watching. Lisa Johnson has not only fought for justice for herself, but for the millions who have been wronged. Today, we honor her for her bravery and unwavering determination. The audience in the hall rose to their feet, erupting into applause. Hundreds were moved to tears as they listened to the speech. A young girl, just 18 years old, had changed the game. Lisa stepped up to the podium, took a deep breath, and spoke. Her words would soon echo across the country. Justice is not a privilege. It is a fundamental right. And today, I have reclaimed justice and not just for myself, but for everyone who has ever been wronged. That statement instantly became a rallying cry on social media. Trending hashtags flooded Twitter, X, and TikTok. Hashtag Justice for All. Hashtag Lisa Johnson. Hashtag Truth Prevails. This was no longer just a trial or a police scandal. Lisa had become a symbol, an inspiration for an entire generation fighting for justice. A week after the historic trial, Lisa Johnson posted on social media, "Remember, true strength isn't about shouting to prove yourself. It lies in staying calm and letting the truth speak for itself." Her words quickly went viral, garnering millions of likes and shares. Lisa was no longer just a victim, she had become a symbol of justice and resilience. The media covered her story extensively, and the public rallied behind her. Human rights organizations also spoke up, turning her journey into an inspiration for many young people. In an interview, when asked if she had any regrets about what had happened, Lisa simply smiled and said, "Not at all. If this hadn't happened to me, it would have happened to someone else. I was just the one who made them pay." Lisa wasn't seeking fame. What she wanted was real change, a wake-up call for those who abused their power to oppress the weak. As she stepped out of the building after the interview, she looked up at the sky, knowing her journey was far from over. She still had her own mission to complete. No one knew what Lisa's next move would be. But one thing was certain, she was a warrior of truth, leaving behind a powerful lesson for those who underestimated others based on appearances.